Economically, though, the data is improving at a pretty rapid clip. Today we got ISM manufacturing, which is a big deal number. Anything below 50 is contraction. Anything above 50 is expansion. It was expected to be at 49 was consensus. We came in at over 52. It doesn't sound like a lot of difference. It's a big deal, though. It's a big deal. 1 month after manufacturing begun to open, we're actually getting into expansion territory again, which is, it has a lot to do with the strength of the economy before this happened. It has a lot to do with the stimulus that has taken place by the U.S. government and the Federal Reserve. The other thing is there's a lot of modeling that can be done in projecting earnings with companies, not using current data because everybody knows it's bad. And there's a lot of opportunity as far as valuation is concerned. And that's why I expect, as I said earlier, that we'll have a lot of volatility throughout the summer. You're going to have these big down days. You're going to have a lot of this choppiness as the market's finding its legs. But it just shot up 2/3 from the bottom back, just over 2/3 of the bottom back in March. So this is a consolidation phase. It's going to be volatile, it's going to be frustrating, and sometimes a little scary. But as long as the data, underlying data, continues to improve, it will be positive. I also want to stress, not all industries, not all businesses, and not all sectors are going to grow out of this at the same rate. There are some huge bubbles taking place, believe it or not, within the market right now. There are companies that are way over their valuation, and they're probably going to get hit at some point, and they're very, very close watching. A little too much optimism in some areas, but it's a very small amount of the market. Not by market capitalization, but a small part of the market. There's also an area of the market that's really unloved right now that stands to run quite a bit as we get into the next stage, what I call the slower, softer stage of the recovery. There's a lot of opportunity because they weren't the big newsy companies. People weren't seeing what they were doing, but they put a lot of effort into redoing their supply chains, redoing their technology, restructuring them. It's going to be some amazing things coming out here, and that's a lot of area that I'm focused on right now. I did talk a bit about that previously. Anyone who wants to go further into that, in the interest of time today, please reach out to me and I'll explain. If you're a client, specifically what I'm doing in the portfolio. If you're not a client, I cannot give you specific recommendations, but at least I can go further into the story if you're interested. So again, that's kind of the broader thing on the economy. I wanted to touch upon a couple of data points that I've been talking about pretty much in each one of these, which is when you can't use traditional economic data because the data is lagging. So it's a quarter old, which doesn't do any good when we were here and now we're here, right, with the suddenness of the drop. We look at a lot of real-time data. And one of which that I've mentioned a lot is we're looking at box office sales. We look at airline travel by TSA checkpoint data. We look at gasoline sales. Okay, and there's a lot more of it, a lot more that we look at there. There's a lot of real-time data that we can look at and kind of see what are people doing, especially in traveling. One that really I've been talking about a lot, but I'm going to bring this up again with the current number, is TSA checkpoints. In the low, we had 80,000 people flying on a day in the United States. 80,000 people. Okay. Last week, last Sunday it was and whatnot, we had just a hair under 600,000 people. Now remember, there's essentially no business travel happening, no international travel happening, and an airplane is the least socially distanced place you can imagine yourself probably. People are still flying at 600 people a day and rising. I know that sounds like, wow, that's great. Look at all those people flying. We used to have 2.5 million people flying every day. So we're still way below where we used to be, but people are going. But a bigger one I want to mention is people are still traveling. And they are traveling more now by car than by plane. So gasoline sales, which is one that I really wanted to pick up on, was down 50% at the height of this back in April. 50% down gasoline. So still not nearly down where air travel was, but just down. Now, last week, it's only down 9%. So that's an important thing to see, and that's why you're seeing the rise in oil prices and whatnot. People are traveling, they're driving, they're not flying, and his business is picking up as well.